Hello there, I'm Tech Dave, and today we're looking at what is behind me. This is the X230 Tablet, which we'll run more into the specs of and all that sort of thing in a minute. And its use in 2021 for digital art. Now I've got a whole load of sweet setups, information here that you'll be able to look into, but stick around to find out more. See you soon. So here we are with the X230. Now, a little preface to this. Previously was my device, as you may have seen in an earlier video. I'll leave it in the cards just here, reviewing the device. And we've gone through quite a lot of upgrades, which we'll go over in a minute. But now, as in all my worldly benevolence, I've given it to my partner, Jennifer Joyce Art, who you'll find links in the description, probably in the comments as well, to her channels. And but yeah, you can see in the background like the incredible artwork that she does on this system. And we're going to go through today what it's like to use this device for digital art in 2021. Now there's a whole load of cool stuff we do with this, some of which involves Parsec, some of which involves eGPU, some of which involves just the standalone device, and we're really going to dive deep. But into the workflow of what it's like to use this machine, and so we'll be right back with that. Now the first thing I wanted to describe, let me just get my other ThinkPad, my humble X230 with my notes on it. So when I previously owned this, I had the exact same base spec device, but we've upgraded to 16 gig DDR3 1600 megahertz. It's got a 1 terabyte, I believe, SanDisk or Samsung Pro, but it performs enormously well. SSD. It's got the Core i7, believe it's a 3520M, but you'll see in the description whether I made a mistake there. It's got the Ivy Rain mod, meaning that we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But meaning that you can add in non-whitelisted parts, which is awesome. And then she's also got the Ultra Base 3, the docking station for it, with a 1 terabyte hard drive in there. It's got the 1366 by 768 FlexView panel, and obviously you can check the other video. It's got stylus and everything. Another thing she did, which I will put a link to in the description, probably most likely, is install custom WACOM drivers on it. So when I had it, it just had the standard Windows 10 drivers, which didn't perform as well. The pressure sensitivity didn't work correctly in Photoshop, so look in the description for those drivers because it's a massive improvement. Previously to owning this device, she had the i5, I think, with the TN panel, and yeah, it's not as good a device. Basically, you can really see the difference in quality between the i5 and the i7, especially with the screen upgrade. Well, the screen difference that this one's got, and it's enabled her to do a lot more detailed work because the fidelity of the screen, the FlexView high fidelity super screen. I'll go into display settings and just verify exactly what that is. It's a wide angle and high density flex view display at 1366 by 768. So that's the basic specs. We mentioned the Wacom drivers. Now, another thing we've done with this device, so I need to pull you off the stand for, is I've added in this, hold on, let's line her up just nicely, just down there. We've got it's not attached at the moment, but we've got the NVIDIA GTX 750 Ti 2GB power supply, EXP B stock version 8.5C. Now, what that means, as you'll see later in the video, is that she can, for example, make a piece of art directly on the device, and then when it comes to render that, or like a video, for example, when it comes to rendering that, you can power down, attach the eGPU, and then connect and then render directly on the eGPU. So we'll go into that in a little more detail because I've lost my train of thought, but I shall be right back with more details about the eGPU. So we just plugged in the 750 Ti, there we go, into the express card port. Now we power her up. Over here we've got a discreetly hidden KVM 2-channel switcher. Now hold on, let's power her up. The display port out going to HDMI goes into position 1 on the KVM, and then the 750 Ti goes into position 2. Now the reason that that is useful is because the 750 Ti, when connected to the eGPU dock, prevents the system from booting. It'll hang or stagger or mess up if the HDMI is already connected. So it means you can bypass the need to hot plug the HDMI cable. Look at that. This is some of Jen's art. Just like, I don't know if this does it justice, but there's just so much detail, and it's just like this one's progressed much further as well. Hold on, let's just put in some password here. Oh. And the benefit of this is that, so this is currently running on the Intel HD graphics, as is that, but then you press the KVM and come on, 750 Ti. Now you can really see some detailed art here. She's incredible. Makes all custom brush sets for Photoshop as well to do all this, and it's like the level. I mean, like, for example, so this is on a 1080p screen, 60 frames per second, running off 750 Ti, but you can see the comparable detail and quality on the 1366 by 768. So let's just go over the desk setup a little bit more quickly, and then I'll switch over to a different camera angle and show you a bit more details. So obviously over here you've got the touchscreen, usable for Photoshop, but we've also added her Wacom pen and touch small here, so that you can still control the device in a touch or otherwise pen input, preserving that workflow. So I've lost my train of thought slightly, so I'll be back with more information. Right, so we're back. We're in Photoshop. So what you can do, so this system runs Photoshop perfectly. Sorry about the shaky camera. Perfectly adequately on the Intel HD graphics, meaning it's completely usable standalone. But then over here, and just look at the just stunning artwork that has been made in Photoshop. Look at that. It doesn't really do it justice, but it's just incredible. So you press Control K when you're in Photoshop, and if it hasn't already, when you've got your eGPU attached, you can tick Use Graphics Processor under the Preferences tab, and then you've got options to use OpenCL, so on and so forth. But when it's on this screen, it is fully GPU accelerated, meaning that you can use more RAM of the available RAM, and then you've got the 2 gig GPU accessible and usable as your primary driver, meaning you can just get just that couple, because the Intel HD graphics obviously uses RAM as VRAM. It's DDR3, whereas this is a 2 gig GDDR5 card, meaning you've got twice the VRAM all on a dedicated bus. I mean, it's not perfect because there's only 2 PCI lanes in the eGPU, but it's a hell of an upgrade from just the Intel HD graphics, meaning that you can do way more in depth. It's way more responsive, way more grunt, basically, while you're doing your photo editing, or in this case your digital art. I think that was all I wanted to cover. Just let me check my notes so I've got them open. Yeah. So we'll be back showing part of Jen's workflow, or something she's trying to do, hopefully do more of, which basically involves you run Photoshop there, and then you run OBS here meaning you can screen capture what you're doing over here. So we'll show you a bit more about that in a second, so stick around to see a bit more of that. Apologies for the shaky camera work. So as far as I'm aware, this is still, so let's go to edit. Actually, no, let's not worry about that. But this is still being graphically boosted by the GPU. But the interesting thing about this, so if we go to view, screen mode, full screen with menu bar. So there is Photoshop running directly on the laptop. Then over here, you can GPU accelerate. It works out about 720p, 30 frames per second. So comfortable streaming quality just with this 2 gig graphics card. And then you can see you've got Photoshop there, editable, and then obviously down here is the camera, meaning that we can either screen capture and film for uploads like time lapses or speed runs or speed drawing and things like that on OBS using the GPU to accelerate OBS while using the Intel HD graphics for Photoshop. It's such a nice workflow. I'll have a little bit more footage of that in a bit. But yeah, I really like, it's been a bit of a game changer for her and for me. So it's yet to be implemented fully to its full extent, but it's going to be great. And I thought that might be of particular interest because a lot of people draw and want to chronicle that for their YouTube channel. So this 2 gig GPU is a really viable way to allow that to be possible for extremely cheap. Like, so getting a 750 Ti these days might be challenging, but like, they're a cheap graphics card. They are available for a reasonable amount. The EXPB stock is about £30, and power supply. I mean, I ripped the power supply out of an old M58P desktop, so it's barely 230 watts, and it runs the graphics card fine. So it's quite a viable way to set up like a screen capture thing and demo yourself drawing, so that you can make content as well as the content that you're making. As well, you can make content about the content you're making while you're making the content. So yeah, I'll be back with a few more features.
Hello.
Now for a mild bit of unsponsored product placement here, not literally because I'm not involved with the company in any way. We're going to show you this via Wi-Fi as well, but this is just Ethernet set up as the desktop setup. Now I'll take you for a little walk while I describe this. There's this software called Parsec, right? And I keep tagging them on Twitter because I'm so absolutely smitten with their product. Now if we walk down here, keep walking into my kitchen, now we've got a little lab in here. Now this is like Jen's like little cubby hole where her desktop lives, with 8 gig RX 580, 16 gigs of RAM. You can see it's on but the screen's off, so it's still getting connection. Now this is like a video editing area, but what, obviously, because it's slightly cramped in here, it's a small space, but it's lovely, but it's slightly cramped. Now the benefit, because that's got a wired Ethernet connection, so previously she would have to sit in a cupboard to do work on that desktop because of the difficulties with sizing in this house. Look out for in the future where we're going to be moving house and making like a full studio. But Parsec, I'm absolutely obsessed with this software. It's become an essential part of my workflow, and to the point where I actively paid for my partner to have a subscription. So one thing that is brilliant about this is if you pay for Warp, the first tier, which is £10 a month or £90 a year, if you're doing digital art, you've got a desktop, you've got an X230, you can combine the two, and it's amazing. So, like, for example, might need to, let's see, what can I open? This is where I might need my partner to come in and show me some stuff. The point is, as you can see, or maybe you can't actually, hold on. So this is the laptop second screen. Over here we have Parsec. You can't see that. Let's just switch over camera angles, hold on. More shaky camera coming your way. So Parsec, accelerated by the desktop, is here. I've got it in a little window, but you can put that full screen. And we're going to show this over Wi-Fi as well. Now, at the moment, we've got it set at H.264, software decoding. You can, with the Warp subscription, sorry about the flare, you get 444 color, so let's just try that, which gives you more color accuracy towards with the way it's encoded. And then you've got client resolution, so it snapped it to 1366 by 768, so it looks scaled really well. Bandwidth limit we set to about halfway, although you can go up to 50, but I find that introduces a mild amount of latency. And the other absolutely epic thing about this, meaning that she can video edit, do After Effects around it, because she does like ambient chill videos. Where is that flare coming from? There we go. She does ambient, like, relaxation videos, one of which I'll either, at the very least, I'll link in the description. If not, show some footage from that, because we did this one called Summer Pond that I did the music for. That's absolutely stunning. But the touch input works on the desktop. Now you've got a Warp subscription. So this means that we can use all the features of the X230 on a remote desktop. How incredibly badass is that? Meaning that you can draw on your desktop using the X230 tablet. Now that is a workflow that you just cannot deny. I'll be right back. So just to further point out why that's genius, it also, I believe, works over Wi-Fi, so let's connect this to Wi-Fi quickly. Basically, what I'm driving at is that as long as you're on the same network, or connected to the internet in general, so we're going to test some theory that I've got as well, because I left in this system a Ericsson mobile broadband connection, meaning that in theory you can do it over there. But let's just open Parsec, right? So, desktop in its previous state, as it was before. Oh, you're seeing that? That's odd. Why is it back to front? Hold on, let's switch camera angle. I forgot about how the basic functioning of smartphones work. But yeah, we're sat chilling on the couch with full touch input access to her desktop, meaning that, let's see, we've got, I need to do this without, let's just change the Parsec. It's a great program. There we go. Right, bandwidth limit, let's change the bandwidth limit down to 25, just so we've got a smooth experience. It won't look quite as good, but it's a smooth experience. The whole point is that I'm chilling on the couch now with full access to Jen's desktop computer, meaning that we can switch back and forth between the laptop and the desktop on the fly, like such as thusly. Don't look at that, you sneaky buggers. Yeah, so basically you've got the laptop, you've got the desktop fully accessible from anywhere with Wi-Fi connection, meaning that the workflow is preserved between machines. And then there's something else I'm going to show you in a minute, but basically you can set up a network share on the laptop and on the desktop, and then you can immediately transfer files back and forth between laptop and desktop, and also use touch input as if you're on the X230 running on the desktop. Now, I think that is absolutely the most amazing setup you could possibly want with something like this, because the X230, even with the eGPU, it's a dual core with 4 threads. So there's certain things that you just cannot do. You cannot do complex video edits. However, with Parsec, you can, and use it. And like, we're going to look at Blender in a minute. I'll show you how to set up the network shares maybe later in the video. But the idea is that you can instantaneously transfer files back and forth. So say you're working on like an image, like this stunning, like incredibly detailed, beautiful image, and then you want to animate over the top of that. You can immediately, via the network share, transfer the file, the image file, over to the desktop, and then start animating over that on the same device, as long as you've got Wi-Fi connection. How badass is that? Welcome to my garden. So, I'm out here in the garden. There is no Wi-Fi connection. Let me just show you. How are we actually connected? We are connected via a Vodafone 4G, maximum speed 21 megabits per second, mobile broadband connection to Parsec. And as you can see, we're still connected to the desktop. Now, to make this work fluidly, we've had to adjust the settings here a little bit. So we've got codec down to H.264, decoder Intel, so it's processing it on the laptop. Turn off prefer for color, 3 megabits per second bandwidth limit, and resolution, we put it down to the native resolution of the laptop. But here we are, potentially anywhere with a 4G signal connected to our desktop at home. There's a little bit of issues, but in theory, on-the-go workflow is entirely feasible with the mobile broadband as well. How badass is that? So another thing, I had to turn it around so the antennas were extended, aka switch the screen around so we had better signal on the mobile broadband. But I don't know how much data it will use, but in theory you've got access to your desktop anywhere with Parsec via your 4G connection on your X230 tablet. I mean, you can do pretty much any work anywhere. How badass is that? Here you are after your hard day out working remotely on your desktop with your X230 tablet. You get home. Oh, and look, here's your workstation where you've got everything set up to run. You can either connect the eGPU at this point, should you want to use GPU acceleration. Oh, hold on, that needs to be on, numpty. And you've preserved your workflow between the device on the go, so you can literally just drop it into the dock and you've got a full desktop setup available that you can then work on the same project that you were just working on back at home with no interruption in your workflow whatsoever. I mean, I don't think I can upsell this enough because I'm just so impressed with it. And the whole way through you've got touchscreen access to your desktop, for example, or just drawing on the go, and then you can email stuff over. But then you come back, you plop it down, you've got your full desktop setup, and then you can dial in again to your main PC should you have one. And it's just like, oh, that's just such a cool workflow. And it's like my partner Jennifer Joyce Art, who you've links in the description, who makes this incredible artwork over here, is able to not only have the tablet itself working beautifully for Photoshop, you can then dial in to your desktop if you have one. You can then come to a second, like all this setup anyway, and then just preserve your workflow with Parsec so that you just constantly connected to that desktop with full touch input. It only costs £10 a month. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not getting any money for it, but I just thought that was incredible. And then you've got the full desktop workflow again. This works as a second screen, obviously. I don't think I can emphasize how amazing this setup really is. I'm really pleased with it. Now down here we also have my server, which can be dialed into via Parsec from the laptop for like heavy workloads. But that could be any computer, you know. It's like most people doing really complex digital modeling, I imagine, will have a desktop. Now we're going to jump into a little bit more information before we do a conclusion, and probably interview my partner about how the workflow goes. But I will be back with more information about why this is just an incredible setup on the X230 tablet. Last thing, while I remember, so I'm just reviewing the footage and I realised I didn't include the network share. So this is the hard drive on the laptop that I'm using to review the footage. That is my server, and you can see it's transferring 11 gigs over the network at a reasonably fast pace. So all you need to do is you basically say I wanted to share. It is already shared, but you click on the drive you want to share, properties, sharing, advanced sharing options, share this folder, concurrent users, permissions, full, etc. Click OK and apply. Then you copy this path there, and then you go via Parsec to the system you want to share the folders with, and then you go into, so now we're on the server, then you go to quick access at the top, paste it in there, and then you map the network drive. And basically I just forgot to mention it basically, but like that allows you to then transfer files back and forth between, say, your X230 tablet directly over the network to your server. So you can Google a bit more how to do that. It's really simple. I remembered I was going to include it, so I'm including it now, post haste. So, and also I'm about to video edit on the server this video from my X230 standard edition, which is something you could do with the X230 tablet as well. Transferring the files over the network directly. As you can see, there's like all the things I wanted to include in the video in my OneNote. And back to the interview with Jenny Joyce, telling you a little bit more about the X230, and that's that. Cheers. Bye. So here we are with Jennifer Joyce Art, aka Tech Jen. She's quite handy with soldering and various electronics. Quick little tip we just discovered while prepping to make this little recording. If you're on your desktop dialed in via Parsec and you're doing something on the laptop screen specifically, you can go to display settings and upscale, change the resolution of Windows 10 itself. So like you right click on the desktop, click display settings, and then you change the scaling. It may not be obvious on the camera, but the idea is that you scale up to a more visible resolution so that it matches the...
Yeah, I found that the icons were too small for sculpting.
Especially using precision with the pen as well.
Yeah, so it was much better at 150.
Yeah. Hold on, let me just turn off my phone sound and we'll be back with a better angle as well. So, yeah. What do you use your X230 tablet for? Basically, we covered a little bit in the background, like your art and stuff, but what's the difference between that and, say, for example, so you got your tablet, pen and touch over there with the desktop, and then the laptop where you can, like how does it improve your workflow?
This is more like your classic painting. The experience is so much. It's just being direct onto the screen.
Yeah.
It completely translates from your muscle memory, basically.
Just for reference, if you look up there in the top left, is that oils or acrylic? I can't remember.
Oils.
Let me just take this off and just show. So not only is she an incredible digital artist, it's real world skills here from like genuine, like your whole thing really is just like incredibly detailed paintings where like the more you look, the more you see, sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what is it you're doing here? So you're in Blender.
This is Blender.
This is something you've been meaning to do for ages as well, isn't it? So the Parsec's been really handy for that.
So I tried using just the X230 tablet on itself. It does run Blender.
Yeah. It's a bit better with the eGPU, isn't it? Just back there when that's plugged in, it's a bit more usable.
Yes. Yeah.
But Parsec, I think with Parsec, and then because we paid for the Warp subscription, get tier 1 Warp if you want to be able to do this. You can go higher as well, but the bare minimum for the touch input is Warp, which is £10 a month. But yeah, as you can see, like digital modelling with the stylus and sculpting and everything, that's something you really wanted to work on, isn't it?
Yeah. So with the X230, it just about can take small models, like it would be able to do this, but any like high detailed work it would struggle with. But what I'm looking
What do you find is the biggest limitation? Do you know, is it the CPU or the RAM or?
So I can do maybe a model of a face with not too much detail, but getting up to, I think it's the graphics. I'm not sure.
That's probably no. If it's the detailed work, it probably is the integrated graphics that are the limiting factor.
I can get up to about the shoulders, and then it starts to be like no. So
yeah.
What I plan on doing with this is getting small models. Maybe I could start like share the load. Like if I'm out, I would be able to do like the start of modelling, where you just do the basic shape, and then doing detailed work. Parsecing into my desktop, I'd be able to finish, or doing like landscape or environments. In Blender, which you can also do.
And then if we talk a little bit about Photoshop as well and After Effects, because are you able to on Parsec just maybe open up one of your rendered files?
My rendered files, yeah.
Of just some video footage.
So I've been working on an animated version of actually the painting up there.
Oh yeah, the one we just showed you. Yeah, it's interesting and then what you've done, you've actually gone in and like taken all the elements and then
you can see
Photoshopped them, and then let's bring in the camera because that's really handy.
And actually, Photoshop have just got a new object selection tool, which would have saved me hours doing this. The new Photoshop 2022.
These are all brushes, are they?
Yeah, and I cut these all out individually, and it took me hours. So
yeah, and you did that on the laptop, didn't you?
Yeah, I did that on this laptop.
Yeah, which now means with the new plugin and the Parsec connection, you could do that on the desktop via the laptop as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, and I did all the like doing all this. I did it all just on my laptop, and then all the video editing was done on my on the big rig.
Yeah, it is a testament to how powerful that i7, because it's only a dual core, but it's like 2.9 gigahertz. I used to have it in my T430S, the same CPU, and it's got a lot of grunt to say it's like what 2000, so like 8 years old. It's not too bad, like.
Yeah, so this there's not much movement there, but this is going to be one of the scenes.
Well, if you just pause it, and then we'll just zoom in a little bit with the actual camera. I don't know how to block that light out. Let's see if I can get a good angle there. You can see how like that painting up there has been massively expanded on because you've got all this extra detail. Yeah, this was done in After Effects, wasn't it?
This is all, After Effects.
Yeah, and it's like layer upon layer, just complexified. So the other essential thing in your workflow, which I'm so happy to have introduced you to Parsec, because I think that's just like a legendary thing. But you pay for the Adobe suite, don't you?
Yes, I have a monthly subscription.
How much is that?
£40 a month. However, I think the standard price is £50, but I got mine in January last year, where it was like on sale. So it might be a sale this year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Wait for the sale.
And the cool thing about that, we'll come to the file share in a bit because that's actually really useful. But it has built-in cloud sharing, doesn't it? So you can back up in the cloud between devices.
Oh well, because I mean, yeah.
But you found that a bit unreliable, have you? Or?
No, that's why I mainly do the subscription. One, you get all the cool new updates, such as the new object select, and also I like the file sharing between all the systems.
How much cloud storage do you get with your subscription?
I think it's 4 gigabyte. I'm not too sure.
It must be more than 4. It's probably 40 or something.
I'm opening too much here.
But yeah, anyway, the point I wanted to drive across was that the X230 on its own is useful for Photoshop, because I don't, you wouldn't know this, but earlier in the video I was talking about how, for example, you can draw a still like this kind of thing that's up here, draw the background and the still or whatever on the laptop, cloud sync it or email it back to your desktop, and then we'll talk about file share in a minute because that's really useful. Then you can then access that file in After Effects on your desktop via Parsec and video edit that, which I thought was like a really cool thing. Especially now, I just realised I'm adamant I'm getting you that Vodafone SIM card, because like,
oh yeah, it can be on the go.
You just do it anywhere with Signal. That's like amazing. And then the other thing, if you could briefly just go back to the laptop, so press the Windows key to bring up, or just close Parsec a second.
I was going to show you.
Oh, go on.
The library in Photoshop, which is why I like the subscription.
Yeah. So we're now advertising Adobe and Parsec, but as a combo, it's like incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a point. So you can make assets as well on the laptop, like you've got that's the whole thing. So you can make assets for a project, and then dial in and use them in via Parsec for your video editing.
Yeah, and then so I could load these into After Effects, or I could load them. Oh, I usually have a wireless mouse as well. That's really useful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's in the cupboard.
Yeah.
I usually have. Oh yeah, I can use this, but I have a wireless mouse.
So that's worth mentioning. The stylus doesn't drag things properly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is there a way to change the settings on that in Windows 10? I think in the mouse and touch settings you probably could change that, but yeah, don't worry about it for now.
Oh, it is working. Right, there you go. Then you got a tab.
And then you've imported your asset that you could, in theory, have made on the laptop, which is then cloud synced, which you can then access on the desktop for animation. Right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And yeah. You've got everything, and you've got all the Adobe support as well. I don't know.
In case anything goes wrong.
My artwork came on a lot when I subscribed to Adobe, so
it really ramped up, I think, especially because you went from like completely analog to completely digital. The other thing is you had the i5 version of this, didn't you? You now sold on to your father. But yeah. I noticed a significant upgrade in the detail of the work you could do once you had the i7 with the better screen.
Not so much for Photoshop. Photoshop worked really well with the i5.
Okay, yeah.
But Blender, there was a big difference. I could only really run, I think it's Blender 2.7 still works on that laptop.
Yeah, but I mean, like the visual fidelity, like, so in terms of like, I remember we opened a project when I first gave you that for your birthday. We opened the project that you'd made on the i5 version. You're like, oh my god, it's so blurry, and then you were able to like really increase like what you could do because you could physically see it better. So
that was the
GPU scaling or something.
The colouring and the screen. The screen is much better on this one.
Yeah, that was what I'm saying. So so it's worth getting that. Do pinches work via Parsec? If you were to just pinch to zoom?
No, I've tried that.
It doesn't work via Parsec.
Yeah, that's why. I've got a wireless mouse, which.
Scroll in.
Yeah.
But that's easily done. So your model, the other thing that you could use is Bluetooth on that, so you don't use a USB port. But that one doesn't have a Bluetooth module at the moment, but we could put one in it. And then, because we're almost at the conclusion, I'm just going to describe, while you just do some sculpting or something, I'm just going to describe things we could do with this. So at the moment, it's got about, I think, 4 hours battery life, is that right? But then under load, it's probably a couple less than that.
Let's find out.
So yeah, I think when I had it, or not under load. You could use it on battery saver down to about 4 hours, but that's an old battery. But one of the things we could do, as well as add a Bluetooth module, is the chips are no longer necessary because I put Ivy Rain BIOS on it, meaning that you can use third-party batteries, you can use cheap batteries, you can use X230 batteries, and it can charge them and still use them, meaning you could get, like, instead of paying 90 quid for one 9-cell battery, which is the average for a decent one from Duracell, for example, which I really recommend, you could get like 3 third-party ones or even 3 X220 ones and use them in that device in a way that you wouldn't have been able to if we'd not done the Ivy Rain BIOS. We could use a more powerful Bluetooth module because the whitelist been removed. We could use a more powerful Wi-Fi module because the whitelist has been removed. We've got overclocking settings, so you could overclock the RAM and you could use 2133 megahertz RAM. That's an idea. The eGPU, so we got a 750 Ti at the moment, which is kind of matched for like the i5, but it's a little weak. So we could go for up to a 3 or 4 gig GPU, maybe even ideally, but this links into a little video I want to make in the future, workstation card, because you don't really, I mean, you mostly use your laptop for work stuff, right? So having a Quadro, for example, like we got in the server, would be better than like a gaming card because the drivers would be better optimized for the Adobe suite.
Yeah.
For example, so we're thinking of a 4 gig Quadro card for that as a dedicated setup. Well, I was anyway, and I think you would get good use out of it. And then further upgrades, I did have another idea of something else. 4 gig graphics card, multiple batteries for on the go, add the Vodafone SIM card. Potentially even upgrade the wireless WAN module to one that's more recent. I haven't had success with that, but I think I just used one that wasn't compatible. And I think other than that, it's pretty much in beast mode as it is. So I've been Tech Dave. Please like, subscribe, share it with anyone that might find it useful. Please click the little bell icon so you can be notified when I've got more videos. This is Jennifer Joyce Art. Where can we find you online? Some of your artwork. So YouTube channel.
Below.
Well, yeah, links will be in the description. But like
Jennifer Joyce Art.
Jennifer Joyce Art. So you're on Facebook,
Instagram, and YouTube.
And YouTube, and you're Jennifer Joyce Art on YouTube as well.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So links in the description. Please check her out. She's incredible talent, and well, it's true. And yeah, maybe you'll get to see some of the end results of this incredible workflow, such as this here and this over here. Look, I was talking about this. I mean, look at this. This just last little thing. This image here is a still. You're going to animate over that, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
And like this workflow with Parsec and like, all that sort of stuff is going to mean that you can do all of that from in this room without even having an eGPU connected. Perfect workflow. And then, yeah, I just think that's incredible. So, thanks for watching. Say thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.